This is Miss O. Reed's Devil's Arithmetic, Chapter 5. Hannah woke early, and the house was still pitch black and silent. Fearfully, she felt her way through unfamiliar rooms in her nightgown and bare feet. The floor was cold underfoot. When she found the front door, she let out her breath slowly. Now, she thought, she'd open the door and be back home. Please, please. Cautiously, she pulled open the door and stared out. Dawn was just beginning beyond the rim of the field. A thin strand of light spun around along the horizon between earth and sky. A rooster crowed his wake-up call into the clear air. "Adieu, adieu," echoed back. That was when she remembered the dream. She had been at the Seder, surrounded by familiar faces, and for some reason she hated being there. The sweet wine, the bitter herbs, she could almost taste them. She heard her aunt's voice singing the day anew as if it from miles away. Suddenly a terrible longing for all the people in the dream overcame her, and she moaned softly. "So, you could not sleep either." Shmuel's voice, deep and rumbling, came from the dark behind her. "Getting married is the most frightening thing in the world, I think, but surely my marriage is not what kept you awake. Did you have another bad dream, Chaya? I worry about you and your dreams. A girl's dreams, like her life, should be sweet and filled with honey." She nodded slowly, then turned. She could see nothing in the black room. As if sensing that, Shmuel came over to stand by her in the doorway. He was fully dressed and smoking a pipe. The curls of smoke feathered out to the open air, spreading themselves thinner and thinner until at last they were gone. "Do you think it strange, little Chaya, that I, Shmuel Abramowitz, with an arm like a tree and, as Gittel says, a head like a stone, should be afraid of getting married?" He flexed his left arm at her and grinned, but above the grin his eyes seemed troubled. "Being married might be scary," Hannah agreed tentatively. "Well, being married does not bother me," Shmuel said, "but getting married, that frightens me." Not sure she understood the difference. Hannah hesitated. "Maybe," she took a deep breath and hurried on, "maybe there's something everyone is afraid of. With you, it's getting married. With me, it's shots." "Shots?" "Shots, you know, needles." She jabbed her right finger into her left arm to demonstrate. She smiled and nodded. "You are very sick, I understand." "Chaya was sick, not me." He continued smiling, as if humoring her. Hannah drew in a deep breath and sighed. "My mother is afraid of snakes," she said at last. "Well, there are not many snakes in Lublin," Shmuel chuckled. "I'm not from Lublin," Hannah said. "I'm from New Rochelle, and I'm not Chaya. I'm Hannah." When Shmuel's eyebrows rose up and lines furrowed his brow, he looked so fierce Hannah moved back a step. "Of course," she said quickly, "there aren't many snakes in New Rochelle either. And Chaya is my Hebrew's name, not Hannah, because of a friend of Aunt Ava's. And Lublin is a big place, I am sure," Shmuel said, scratching his beard with gathering urgency. "And surely I'm not familiar with every avenue and street, having only been there twice in my life." "New Rochelle is not in Lublin, wherever that is. It's a city all its own," Hannah cried. "Since when is a street a city?" Hannah could feel her voice getting louder, like Aaron's when he was scared, and a panic feeling was gripping her chest. "New Rochelle is too a city. It's in New York." "New..." Suddenly remembered Gittel's boyfriend Abram. She shouted, "In America!" "And Krakow is in Siberia, I get it. A joke to help me forget about my marriage fears," he laughed. "Lublin in America, Krakow in Siberia, though dear Gittel would say it most certainly is too that far to both of them." He reached out and patted Hannah on the head. "What a strange little bird you are indeed, who has found her way into our nest. Gittel is right. But come, my little Amerikanischer, whose Yiddish is pure Lebanese, let us feed, hopple and popple, and discuss some geography some other time. Lublin in America, Krakow in Siberia. And he chuckled again as he held out his cloak for her and a pair of ugly black tie shoes. Seeing that he was not taking her seriously, Hannah decided there was nothing else to do but go along. She took the clothes. The ugly shoes seemed to fit perfectly, too perfectly. She shivered, then followed him out to the barn where they fed hay to the workhorses, Hopple and Popple, in companionable silence. Hoping for a big breakfast, Hannah was disappointed when all Giddle put on the table was a jug of milk, black coffee, and a loaf of dark bread. No cereal? Hannah asked. No donuts? No white bread for toast? White bread? So that is what one eats in Lublin. White bread is for rich folks, not for farmers. Shmuel laughed. But yesterday you would not eat nothing at all. And today you want white bread. It is an improvement, I think, from nothing to Lublin white bread. But then I forgot. You are not from Lublin. You are from Rochelle. New Rochelle. And where is old Rochelle? Giddle asked. There isn't any, Hannah said, shaking her head. What was the point in arguing with dream people who mixed you up? Anyway, she was starving, even if it was a dream. She reached for the milk pitcher and poured herself a glass of milk, took a swallow, and choked. It tasted awful. She looked into her glass. It's got things floating in it, she said. What things? Giddle looked. There. Well, that is not things. That is the cream. You have no cream in the milk in Lublin? Rochelle, said Shmuel. New Rochelle, Hannah insisted. Old, new, what does it matter? Asked Giddle. But if there is no old Rochelle, how can there be a new? Shmuel mused out loud. Perhaps there is a Rochelle all alone, though the child does not know it. Pupil, Giddle said. Men love to pursue questions without answers merely for the sake of arguing. It is what they do best. Ignore him, Chaya. A rabbi, he is not. Hannah nodded, noticing Shmuel wasn't eating, trying to pass him the pitcher of milk, but he waved it away. We do not follow the old traditions, Giddle and I, alone here and so far from the village, but I think it is not bad to hold on to some traditions, like the groom's wedding fast. Giddle snorted. Especially if your stomach is nervous. Me? Nervous? And what do I have to be nervous about? Shmuel winked at Hannah, as if binding her to silence. I heard you tossing all night, mister. I'm not so nervous. And I heard how early you got up this morning, even before the rooster crowed, even before the spring sun. Shmuel seemed about to answer her back when there was a loud knock at the door. Hannah jumped at this unexpected knock. Then a small hope suddenly warmed her. Maybe the knock was some kind of signal that the strange play was over. Maybe it was her mother or her father or Aunt Ava standing out there. She started to rise, but Giddle got up first and went to the door. When she opened it, the door framed a man with shoulders as wide as the door itself, wiry red hair, and a bushy red beard. Good morning, Yitzhak, Shmuel called out. Yitzhak greeted Shmuel in return, but he kept his eyes on Giddle, who gave him no more than a grunt in a way of greeting. Have some coffee, Yitzhak. It's a long way through the forest from the shtetl to here, and even longer to Faig's village, Shmuel said, gesturing expansively with his hand. And have you heard about our little niece, Chaya? Little is what I've heard, but you have here no little girl. She's a young lady, Yitzhak said, grinning at her. And are you feeling better? I see good color in your cheeks. Hannah looked down at the table, embarrassed by the butcher's compliments, and Giddle reached over in front of her and took the coffee pot up, placing it down again with a solid thwack in front of Yitzhak. Taking the pot up eagerly, Yitzhak poured himself a cupful that slopped over the rim. Giddle made a small snick of annoyance between her teeth and wiped up the spill with the edge of her apron. Almost shyly, Yitzhak smiled up at her, took a deep drink of coffee, then turned slowly to Shmuel. I have 2 cages of chicken outside, Shmuel, my wedding gift. Should I leave them or take them to Faig's village with us? Leave them, Yitzhak, Shmuel said. With our great thanks. After all, Fagin and I will be returning here for the wedding night, and she will see them. Then, if she sees anything but your blue eyes, then she's a fool, Giddle said. She should be counting your curls, not her gifts. We will load the chickens in the wagon with the other wedding gifts. These schnorrers of Vyask will not think that we do not honor our own. Shmuel laughed. Giddle and Chaya will stay the night with Fag's people and come home in the morning. It would not do. The walls are thin. He actually blushed, and Giddle put her hand on his shoulder. Do not say it step by step in front of the child, she said. I did no such thing, Giddle. I was careful. I only said the walls are thin, and so they are. He meant no disrespect, Yitzhak added quickly. Hush, Yitzhak the butcher. Do not tell me in my home what is and what is not. Giddle's eyes sparked. Hannah interrupted. But I know what a wedding night is. All three stared at her, and Yitzhak laughed nervously. You see, he said, I told you she was a young woman. Well, you said a young lady, and a lady is not what she is if she knows about such things, Giddle said. It's on General Hospital, Hannah began. Giddle turned to Hannah and shook her head. So in Lublin the hospitals tell you about these things? I do not think much of hospitals, and I think even less of Lublin. You know so much, my little Hitka broker. Telling you anything more is carrying straw to Egypt. Ah! She threw her hands up in the air and spun around to face Yitzhak. And you finish your coffee. Look how the morning flies and we sit here gabbling about wedding nights which are going to be here soon enough. I have to still clean the house. I will not have Faga coming in here fresh from her father's house where there is a serving girl to clean and think me and all the Shettle Slovens. We have to leave before noon. That's why I came early, Giddle, so I might help my children too. Yitzhak stood. The coffee spilled in his hand. The children, oi! And where did you leave them? Outside in the cages like children, or like chickens? She clicked her tongue and went to the door. Opening it, she waved her hand in greeting. Reuven, Zipporah, come in. Two little blonde-haired children, no more than 3 or 4 years old, suddenly appeared in the doorway, silently holding hands. Go, sit at the table with my niece Chaya, the young lady over there, Giddle said. She will give you milk with the things in it, and tell you stories about places called new, and this old that. And then you can go outside with her and feed the horses and chickens. The horses are fed, Shmuel said. The chickens I will tend to myself with Yitzhak and the children. Chaya can help you in the house. There is enough to do. Yitzhak's massive hands made surprisingly dainty circles in the air. My children and I will take care of the animals. Zipporah is wonderful about collecting eggs, a real specialist, and Reuven knows just when to shoo them off the nest. He smiled down at his children, who looked up at him adoringly. We are sorry if we disturbed you. We thought we would come over early and in that way help. Help! Giddle sniffed, but she smiled at the children. No sooner had Yitzhak disappeared outside with Reuven and Zipporah than Shmuel laughed out loud. I swear, Giddle, that man is already henpecked and not even married to you yet. He is a monster, Giddle murmured. Imagine leaving those sweet motherless children outside like chickens in cages. She began to swipe at the table furiously with a wet rag. I thought he was nice, Hannah ventured. Nice! Giddle's voice rose. But then you know so much about raising motherless children too, I suppose. Hannah closed her mouth. Argument was useless. Instead, she began to clear away the dishes with silent efficiency and seemed to be the only one who was surprised that she was helping.